AgrAbility site's virtual trainings. My name is Candy Leathers. I'm with the Colorado AgrAbility Project. I'll be moderating today's training. This is on farmer mental health trends, risk factors, and stress reduction techniques or mindful living. What I'd like to do first is introduce two of our speakers today, and I will go over some basic information. So, just housekeeping would be if you'd please mute your microphone and rename your screen with your first and last name. If you haven't done so already, we'd appreciate that. If you need closed captioning, you can click on the closed caption button at the bottom of the Zoom screen and get that. If you have questions, we ask that you please type them in the chat box and we will answer them as time allows. And Tessa and I will try to keep track of those and present those to the speakers as we can. This session is being recorded and it will be available at the National AgrAbility website at a later date. At the end of the session, please click on the link that will be put into the chat box to complete an evaluation on the session. We greatly appreciate that. So I think that's our housekeeping. So I'll go ahead and introduce our two speakers today. First of all, Susanna Winden joined the Penn State faculty in 2018 and is an assistant professor of youth and adult leadership at the department in agricultural economics, sociology, and education. Prior to coming to Penn State, Winden worked for Ohio State University Extension in the Learning and Organizational Department unit. Before 2011, Susanna had 16 years of experience in research and teaching institutions in Ukraine. Susanna serves as a project director for the AgrAbility for Pennsylvania. In 2019, she launched two programs, the Leadership Program for Farmers and Natural Resource Stakeholders and the Volunteer Management Program for Community Leaders, Outreach Educators, Nonprofit Organization Leaders, and Volunteer Coordinators. Additionally, we have Josie Rodolfi, PhD, is an assistant professor and extension specialist in the Department of Agriculture and Biological Engineering at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Dr. Rodolfi's research and outreach focuses on farm stress and mental health, agricultural safety and health, and child agriculture injury prevention. She is the project director of the USDA-funded North Central Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Center and 15 organization collective to expand and create farm stress resources and services in the 12 North Central region states. In addition, she directs the Illinois AgrAbility Unlimited, an extension program that provides direct services and education to farmers with disabilities. Dr. Rodolfi was a 2020 National Rural Health Association Fellow and is passionate about increasing access and availability of mental health services to farmers and their families in rural areas. Rodolfi grew up on a corn and soybean farm in eastern Iowa. She has a PhD in occupation and environmental health from the University of Iowa. So without further ado, Josie and Susanna will present. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. We are really excited to be here today to talk about a topic that Susanna and I are both very passionate about. Today, we're going to talk mostly about farmer mental health. The objectives are to describe common stressors in agriculture, most of which you're probably very aware of. Talk a little bit about what we know about the burden of mental health conditions among agricultural populations. And then we're going to talk about stress, some of the symptoms of stress. And then Susanna's going to talk about the ABC model and share strategies and tips for building stress resilience and implementing stress reduction techniques. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We will try to monitor the chat, but I think there'll be plenty of time towards the end for conversation and questions. So you can start leaving those in the chat if you prefer. To get started, so what is stress? We've probably all experienced stress before. If you haven't, I want your life. But stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension, and it typically emerges from an event or situation that perhaps leaves us feeling uncomfortable or unsettled. And those may be feelings of frustration, they may be feelings of anger, they may be feelings of nervousness, perhaps some anxiety, and sometimes are feelings or emotional responses that we can't even really describe. However, we all hopefully know when we are beginning to experience stress. And the reality is we all probably respond to stress in different ways. And we all have different thresholds for stress. But it's really defined as a body's reaction to a challenge or demand. And the stress, it's not really a stress cycle, but if you look towards the right, this is a visual that I often like to use. I think we can all relate to this to some extent. When I talk to young people or students about stress, we often relate to this sort of performance curve. And so you can see as the level of stress increases, so does our performance actually. Perhaps you've lived in a time where you were a little bit bored with whatever was going on in your life, maybe personally or professionally. And while you felt very, very calm, you perhaps were not experiencing like a performance peak. And what we know is that as the level of stress increases to a point, we become perhaps more motivated, certainly more energized. We may feel more mentally focused and really, really like peak performance. That's our optimal performance place. And I talk to students and I use the example of preparing for finals week, which we just did here on campus. There might have been some times in the semester where they were perhaps a little bit bored, didn't experience a lot of stress. But as finals became closer, we really ramped up on studying. We started to imagine what would happen if we didn't study. We may fail a class. We may not get the grades we want or our parents want. So we become very energized. We focus really hard for hopefully a week or two. We accomplish those projects. We finish those exams. And hopefully we can resort back to this period of relative calm. And for some people, we never get back to calm, or it may take a very, very long time for that curve to come back towards calm. And what we know is that if we are stressed for long periods of time and we become physically exhausted, we start to experience fatigue, of course, exhaustion and burnout. And that's when we've moved from a healthy place of estrus to an unhealthy place of distress. We know agriculture, individuals who work in agriculture experience tremendous amounts of stress. We know that their stressors are a little unique when we compare those to other industries. Conversations, surveys, focus groups, and interviews with farmers have identified some of the most common stressors, and they include time pressures, so not having enough time to get everything done. This is kind of not necessarily unique to farmers. We all have deadlines. We all have things we must accomplish by a certain time. But for farmers, time pressures are often compounded by the weather. So they have deadlines. They know when they need to get a crop in or out of the ground in order to have the most financial success. Unfortunately, they can get up as early as they want. They could stay at work as late as they want. But if the weather's not going to cooperate with them, they may not be able to accomplish their goals. We also know that there are political factors at play, more global or US economics at play that may influence financial success of a farm. And then of course, we know that personal finances, so navigating commodity prices, navigating markets is certainly a stress on some of our farmers. Even negotiating rent prices, year after year, and trying to navigate that with a landlord who may see, farmers with new equipment or other types of what looks like financial success, and then trying to really demonstrate what that bottom line looks like for them. We also know that a lot of these are really out of the control of a farmer, which is incredibly frustrating. I appreciate getting paid on the same day of every single month, and I typically know how much that's going to be. And that's certainly not the reality that a lot of our farm and ranch families experience. We also know that COVID-19 created an incredible amount of stress for everybody. And we know that it created some really unique stress for some people engaged in agriculture. We surveyed almost 1,800 farmers in primarily the Midwest and mostly Illinois. During kind of the peak of COVID-19, it was between April and May of 2020. And we asked them in open text boxes to describe some of the stressors, the new stressors that they were starting to experience. And a lot of these stressors related to supply chain issues, not being able to get the inputs when they needed them, not being able to conduct business like they usually do. They weren't able to meet face-to-face with their agronomists or other individuals who often help or assist them in putting a crop plan together or a crop in the ground. There's a lot of concern early about packer closings in the Midwest and not having markets for beef or hogs. And then also, like many of us, concerns about COVID-19 and being able to protect themselves, because sick days are also not a luxury that a lot of farmers get, being able to protect their families and then anybody who might be working with them. So we know that an incredibly stressful occupation was compounded by COVID-19 in the last year and a half. So the occupational health model demonstrates a pathway between chronic stress and physical and mental health conditions. And then these pathways are mediated to some extent by personal characteristics such as resiliency or an individual's tolerance to some types of stress, and then social support. So how many close friends and confidants does an individual have to help them through some of their more stressful situations? But we know chronic stress is associated with physical health conditions such as hypertension, heart attack and stroke, as well as numerous musculoskeletal conditions. But we also know that chronic stress is associated with mental health conditions. That chronic stress can lead to symptoms or diagnoses of anxiety and depression and or substance use. And a question we often get is sort of, what is the mental health status of the agricultural workforce? And it's a very difficult question to respond to. And those of us in research like to be very careful not to exaggerate what we know, because what we know, unfortunately, is somewhat limited. So depending on the study, depending on the year, depending on the sample, which may be, crop farmers, livestock farmers, or a specific state, we know that the prevalence for anxiety and depression is typically higher among farm populations than the non-farm population. And that ranges, based on published literature, it's estimated that 12.9 to 60% of owner-operators meet the criteria for at least moderate depression, which is typically characterized as a 2-week prevalence. So after reporting to a series of questions about feelings of anxiety and or depression in the last 2 weeks. Published reports estimate anywhere between 13 and 60% of the owner-operator population is experiencing at least moderate depression. Consistently, farm workers report nearly 50% meet that criteria for depression. And again, these really vary on the type of instrument that was used, of course, the population that was sampled, and the year, because we know that agricultural stressors vary depending on the year. We also know that there's increasing concern among farm families. A lot of what's available, published information, focuses on either owner-operators or farm workers. And those of us that grew up in a farm family know that conversations about work happen at the dinner table, and that the line between farming and family is often blurred. And so we're recognizing and building on studies from the early 2000s that consider the impact of farm stress on the farm family, and looking at how economic hardship has already been associated with internalizing and externalizing behaviors among youth. And we have a project going right now that's looking to expand on this to identify how farm family stress is experienced and manifested among the entire farm family, specifically adolescents and adults. So with that, I do want to talk a little bit about the North Central Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Center. This is a 12-state collaborative, encompasses nearly exactly 15 partners actually. And the goal, this is a USDA funded regional center. The goal is to expand mental health services and resources for agricultural populations in the 12-state region. So we're doing that by expanding professional behavioral health services in some states, pilot testing a support group model in a state. We're offering a number of different training programs, such as mental health first aid in the Michigan State curriculum, which includes a couple of modules to increase one's competency and sort of confidence in talking to friends and family members about mental health. We're expanding telephone helplines, and we offer a number of resources and services available for search on the Clearinghouse website, which was just recently debuted, farmstress.org. Our hope is that this becomes, like a bookmark, and that those of you who work with farmers or farm families have this as a resource for you and also for them. So with that, I will turn it over to Susanna.
Thank you so much, Josie. I try to share my screen right now. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right. Sharing screen. All right, thank you so much, Josie. And Josie discussed about stress, about effect of stress on the health, and shared the result of the survey. And now I would like to ask you, and please put in the chat box, what does it mean for you to be stressed on the farm? You can find the chat box in the bottom of your screen, on probably on the bottom or right side. Or you feel frustrated, or you feel time constraints? Thank you so much. Pressure, social isolation, exactly, especially right now during the pandemic time. Thank you so much for sharing. I agree. I think a lot of us really are experiencing the social isolation issues during this time. Too much work to do on the range to go to normal things. Yes. A lot of time pressure. A lot of things to do for the little time. Thank you so much. You all can continue to put your thoughts, what you really think about the stress, and what does it mean be stressed specifically for you working on the farm. And meanwhile, I will continue my presentation. So effect of stress. So when person is stressed out, usually we're experiencing that the way how we think it's changed. The person may have the tunnel vision we call that prevent that person specifically to think about other alternative options, because the person focusing on the threat become more suspicious and feel like cannot handle the anger, and very often misinterpret social interaction. right now, I would like to just make very quickly discuss about the different symptoms that related to the stress, because a lot of people experiencing the stress and not related to the stress. So for example, first one, it's emotional stress symptoms. When people feel overwhelmed, cannot quiet their mind, have a short temper, and frustration, neglecting health condition that we call emotional stress symptoms. The second group of symptoms, we call it physical stress symptoms. When person experiencing things like you see on your screen, insomnia, low energy, dry mouth, difficulty to swallowing, breathing, trend, right? Muscle tightening, sweaty hands and feet, and cold and infection, and even grinding teeth. Especially in adult age, I remember that I discussed with some of the doctor, and the doctor said that people in being adult, we never think and connect that we easily can be cold, get infection because we stressed out more. So we need to just remember about that and connect it and see, are we really stressed today or not? Why we have all the symptoms? So cognitive stress symptoms that reflect that inability to focus, racing thoughts, be disorganized, that affect our judgment and affect the person being very pessimistic. And last one is behavioral stress symptoms that relates that person start to procrastinate, cannot to focus and losing concentration, and changing in sleeping habits. And we see the different trend between person eating too much or not eating, right? Or nail biting things. In the worst case scenario, it's drug and alcohol use. So Josie a little bit talk about the consequences of the stress, but based on the previous research, I would like to also emphasize that many farmers feel the farm work and family life unbalanced, and they feel that helpless to change their circumstances. So now I would like to use some activities with you and ask Tess to help us to launch their poll question. How stressed do you feel? For example, in the past months, how often have you been upset because of unexpected frustration or event? You see that survey on your screen. So there are several options. It's never. Second one, occasionally or almost never. Next one, sometimes, fairly often, and very often. And I will give you about 1-2 minutes to answer all these 4 questions that you see on your screen. Thank you so much. So second question, in the past months, how often have you believed that things were not going your way? Question number 3, in the past month, how often have you believed that you had more to handle that you could deal with? And the last question, in the past month, how often have you felt irritable and impatient about small things? So in original version of this, how stressed do you feel assessment, I have about 10 or 11 items. So usually when I do this type of training for the farmers, they have a better idea how they feel about how stressed are they. So let's take probably given a few seconds more. And I'm gonna end the poll. Thank you so much. And you see the results. So the question number 1, in the past months, how often do you feel upset because of unexpected frustration event? And we see that 53% answered sometimes, 13% said fairly often, and occasionally 29%. Question number 2, in the past month, how often have you believed that things were not going your way? 42% say occasionally, 32% reported sometimes, and fairly often 11%, and very often 11%. Question number 3, in the past month, how often have you believed that you had more to handle that you could deal with? And we see 37% answer sometimes, occasionally 29%, fairly often 11%, and very often 8%. In the past months, question number 4, how often have you felt irritable and impatient about small things? 42% occasionally, sometimes 34%, fairly often 18%, and very often 3%. So during having the stress management webinar, definitely we're focusing on those people who are experiencing higher stress, right, when we're delivering this program for our farmers. So in the next slide, I would like that you take a time and review these questions and answer these questions. There are only 2 answers, yes and no. And I would like that you count how many yes you have and how many no you have. And we discuss a little bit, how do you deal with stress and what kind of technique we will use to reduce the stress level. That's going to be major focus of my part of presentation. Okay, if you have less than 7 yes, so any efforts made to improve your ability to recognize and deal with stress will help promote balance in your life. If you have 7 or more yes answers, you are on the right track. Share your ability to balance farm stress through difficult times with your friends, with families, and community members. So this is a good news. So continuing my presentation, I would like to focus right now on the stress reduction techniques, or otherwise how to build stress resilience. But the first, I would like to introduce you to the ABC model. So many of us do not realize that our perceptions about different events that are happening in our life, or our way of thinking style and attitude, can also contribute to our level of stress. And this idea came up from Dr. Cooper, that lately was adopted by Dr. Siegelman, who was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and past president of the American Psychological Association. So Dr. Siegelman adopted a version that was published in 1990, a book that called Learned Optimism. In this technique, basically, this technique is based on the explanatory style in how we explain difficult or stressful situation to ourselves first. And this thought directly impact that what we believe about that particular event, ourselves, and the world at large. So this technique pushes you to more analyze 3 important aspects of the situation. So first one is adversity, second one is your beliefs, and number 3, consequences. So whatever you encounter adversity, you develop thoughts and beliefs about the particular situation in your life. This in turn lead to consequences. So he discussed about discuss about to be optimistic, you must change what you believe about yourself and the situation when you encounter adversity. So it's all about positive beliefs will in turn lead to more positive consequences and a more positive outlook on life. So let's discuss a little bit about regular days that many of us experiencing, specifically when we talk about farmers, right? Just think about how many hats farmers wear. So he is or she is a farmer, an accountant at the same time, right? In plant pathologist, a veterinarian, but at the same time, he or she can be a parent and spouse, a child and brother, sister, a friend. So many things, right, in our life, in their plus our work day happening. So let's take very simple day that sometimes things not going right as we want. In the early morning, you cannot find your key. You can get some call from dealership, and you learn that your equipment has some major issues or not ready to pick up. Or you got a mail about your credit card bill, or you learn about the price drop for agricultural commodities, right, which we're not happy to hear, or someone wrote left the message in your website about how unhappy they were with the service was provided, or you have some delivery issues. So I'm intentionally mentioned all of these things that happening very often in our life and bring us that level of frustration. However, I would like to introduce you to think about from perspective of monitoring your stress. How often we really consider about applying to that ABC model in real life and discuss and think about the importance of that particular event in your life, right, or situation that bring you that frustration and the level that stress you're experiencing. So for example, let's go to that my example that I show you in the previous my web slide, that first in the 6 in the morning, you cannot find your key, right? In the second column, you see your stressor, particular situation and importance level from 1 till 10. In the third column, explain your stress level from 1 till 10 as well. And if you compare these two columns, in particular importance level of that particular situation in this particular example, number 2, and you cannot find your key, your stress level here identified as the number 4. So you're annoyed and upset in the number 4. However, the importance level of that particular situation on the level number 2. So you see the discrepancy if you look through all other situations or like situation, right, or stressors that can bring to stress, to be stressed on the second column. And you always can see the numbers that apply on the side, and you see that discrepancy. So that is important to better understand the importance of this event. And you know how many times you lose your key, right? And you give yourself 1-2 minutes and think about where you left it, for example, last night. And it's basically, you very easy can find it. However, the level of frustration or being upset much higher than that importance of that particular situation. So that what about this ABC model? So a confidence is really important when you really deal with stress. If you feel confident that you can manage your stress, you will feel less stressed. So right now, I would like that you personally think about some particular situation or stressful situation that you are dealing in your life, okay, as a farmer. And I would like that you consider different aspects of this particular stressful situation and things from perspective of things that you can control, okay? So just identify in your mind like a couple of things that you can control. So it could be, for example, feeling as isolated in the farm, right? Or maybe worrying about keeping the farm in the family. Another thing, think about things that you cannot control. For example, low agricultural commodity prices, or yield loss due to weather condition, or a farming related accident happen. So in number 3, think about things that you are not sure you can or cannot control. For example, you are worrying about let's say how you're gonna deal with salesperson, or you worry about how that you cannot keep up with some new technology or software, or you have some conflict with your spouse currently. So the things you are not sure can or you cannot control. But at this particular time, I would like that you focus on the things that you cannot control, and we will do activity together. Now I would like to ask you, please close your eyes and take a very deep breath. Please, let's do all together. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Please continue the breathing and very carefully listen me and follow the instruction. Right now, I would like that you choose a box in your imagination. It could be oak box, it could be metal safe, or it could be large vase or dark gray metal box, whatever. Be very specific about size, shape, color, and texture. Imagine labeling your box with descriptions such as things that you cannot control in your life. For example, yield loss due to weather condition, or a low egg commodity price, or whatever. Each of you will have your personal situation that you cannot control, or factors that affect that situation. It could be also personal. So right now, I would like to ask you that you imagine putting all your worries and fears about the uncontrollable outcomes of your stress into the box. Visualize yourself packing them in, or see your worries as a stream of smoke or light or sand or water that flows into the box or container. Give them the form that feels right to you. Once all your worries are in the box, imagine sealing it. You could use a lid, a lock, a chains, plastic wrap. It is up to you how to seal your box. When your box is sealed tight, imagine storing it somewhere. You could put it in the cave, stow it in an attic, or load it onto a boat, or send it into space in a rocket ship. Anywhere you want to store it is okay. When your box is sealed and stored, imagine yourself walking away from it and back into your life. You can come back and open it if you need to. But for now, it's safely put away. I would like that you again, all together, make a deep breath, breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Set an intention to focus all your efforts and energy on the parts of your stressors that you can control. So thank you so much for doing this exercise. And like I said earlier, you can implement that practice while you're working with farmers, share that with them, or you can apply it in your personal situations as well. So creating positive state of mind, it is extremely important. So one way is to build in a resilience plan in which you proactively engage in activities that creates positive emotions, then deliberately use these positive moods to fuel your thinking about stressors. So different type of activities create different moods. So I would like to ask you, always pick 2 or 4 activities that might work for you, and then make a plan to fit these activities in your daily schedule in a regular basis, and just give yourself 20-30 minutes to sit and think about your stressors or difficult situation. And I truly believe that creative solution come to mind. And many times people asking how to do that. So when in here on your screen, you see must have positive activities. So when I'm saying create, for example, joy, right? So I mean create joy through creative activities that will push the limit of your mind and problem solving creativities. When I'm emphasizing create interest, so create interest, for example, through exploring and trying new things in your life that can help you integrate new information and expand your horizon. Don't lock yourself in the box. Create contentment, for example, through enjoying nature or beauty. Practicing gratitude is really, really helpful. And recalling some positive memories from your life, which help you always have a positive focus and find a new perspective. So another one, for example, create love through spending time with loved one, which help you feel energized, inspired, and safe. For example, another things like create relaxation, for example, through sports of entertainment, which help you to slow down a little bit and find the downtime for yourself and find a new perspective. Create engagement. It is really important too, because through creating engagement, you can basically do it through challenging tasks that help increase your confidence and stay more focused and feel sense of flow and feel sense of something bigger. So in the last one here on my screen, it is create amusement through humor that helps you always find a new perspective and get some distance from your problem. Many people find it's really helpful according to research. So positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. And one of the interesting things that I found in the book, it was assessing the odd exercise that simply by replacing it is likely word with is it possible things. So for example, if you carefully if you carefully look at your screen, you see, is it possible that not dying in the flood 99.99%, not dying in the earthquake 99.99%, right? Not dying in a tornado 99.99, not dying in a motor vehicle accident 98.97, not dying by stroke 96.55, not dying of cancer 85.71. So when you kind of using that, looking at big numbers and using that they're assessing the odd exercise technique, I think it's just shifting the perspective, how you're looking at things and how you evaluate that particular events that's happening in your life. And I'm bringing you to the point, very important point, that in 1994, Dr. John Kabat-Zinn came up with the definition of mindfulness, okay, as a way of paying attention purposefully. And you see, I emphasize it in the red and bold, purposefully, and with non-judgmental acceptance to your present moment experience. So, and he discussed about the how helpful mindfulness practices in regulate and build that stress resilience. I think I would like right now to give you 3 things here you see on the screen, just let you think a little bit broadly about mindfulness that John Kabat-Zinn recommended. First, adopt the stance of mindfulness toward your own experience in that particular present moment. It could be anything. And it is important when you just basically sit peacefully and think about, examine and observe, right? Your thoughts, your feelings, your body sensations. And even let's do it right now. So just think about you're sitting in your room, right? And just identify 3 things what you see in your room. If you close your eyes, just think about, observe what you're hearing, what you hear right now. And examine how you feel right now. Think about your body sensation and just ask yourself how often you're doing this. Very rarely, right? I know the answer, not often. So, and try to do that as much as possible if in your life when you're especially stressed. So you give yourself that space to be like kind of downtime with yourself, and try to replace that some particular fear or some factors, right, that bother you in your mind with just a curious, gentle, and welcoming attitude that free of judgment, self-blame, or aversion. And right now, I would like to invite you to practice this stop exercise that you can help yourself basically first. So please close your eyes and take a very deep breath with me. Breathe in and breathe out. Stop whatever you're doing and bring your mind back to this particular present moment, okay? Continue, take a very deep breath that help you slow down your fight, flight, and freeze response. And begin to notice what you are feeling, what you are thinking, and what you are doing. Pay attention what is going with your body. Are there any emotions you're experiencing? And important things here, describe them: angry or scared or something else. Try to stay in the moment. Be there with these feelings. And very important part here, continue breathing. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And try breathe into that feelings and imagine sending your breath into the areas that feel tight inside of your body, constricted or activated by this feeling. Breathe in and breathe out. You will feel some relaxation inside of your body. When you are feeling sufficiently present and aware about your feeling, your emotions, your thinking, go about your business in a deliberate way and continue what you were doing with a more mindful demeanor. So that was another called practice stop exercise that can help you basically manage some stress situation in your life in very simple and easy. And I will tell you more that usually not take more than 1 minute, less than 60 seconds. And if you help yourself basically start your day on this mindful note and just let yourself think about what you feel, what you're doing, and breathing, that will really help you relieve your stress in particular moment. You may not figure out the entire big issue, right? But what is important things here, you basically save yourself from the health issues that basically Josie mentioned it in the beginning that related to heart disease or heart attack or anything else. So you basically save yourself in this particular moment and will have more time to think about the situation and monitor that situation that I discussed a little bit earlier today. So breathing creates space for anger and frustration and allow us to see the solution. So sometimes people ask me what to do really, what to do when you just hear some negative like news, right, or bad news. And let's say you are driving early morning and just checking your orchard after really cold night, and you realizing that it was freezing night, and what happened to your orchard, and you come to your orchard and you see that not good, okay, not good, all the trees and situation not good, and just instead of just get out of your truck, just take a very long, 3 long deep breaths, and during this time, just let's do it together. Actually, I don't want to tell you this, I just wanted that we practice it today. That's what this webinar about, right? Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And find something very, very special in your life to be thankful for. Very special in your life to be thankful for. Just one. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And this is very short exercise that probably will take, again, less than 60 seconds. Will kind of, I call it help yourself think, really help you to save yourself, okay, save yourself from heart attack or something else, or high blood pressure. So try to repeat this type of exercise as it's needed throughout the day. Okay, it's not necessary to wait when you already stress up. So just try to start to breathing exercise as you try to see that elevation of some of that frustration. And definitely you cannot stop that events happening, but you can stop your reaction, your body reaction to the stressors. And again, go back to ABC model, just give yourself a little bit time to think about the situation and observe the way of your thinking, okay? Which, if you remember ABC model, we see the consequences. So it's up to you, decrease that level of stress or increase the level of stress. That's only what you can do immediately in that particular time. So definitely benefits of practicing mindfulness a lot, and there is a lot of studies about that. But we discussed today a little bit about be mindful about your present time, right? And breathing exercise, and use this kind of very simple techniques in situation that you need somehow to handle. And this is really help you to decrease stress level and manage the triggers and reduce that error rate that very often happened in when we're working with farmers with disabilities and see a lot of different accident happening, right? That's what I'm talking about. And you will be stay more focused, and that affect the level of your happiness at the end of the day. So another thing that I would like to emphasize in the end of my presentation, sharing the couple techniques that just stay focused, especially focus on one thing at a time. We already probably know, all of us know that multitasking is not good things, and it's increased our stress level and decrease that level. Another important thing is just stay focused. Focus on one thing at a time and take your time to do things. So right now I would like that you reflect on different strategies that I shared with you today, and just think about few questions that you can ask yourself when we talk about determining your stress level, and how many factors can affect your high stress level, right? And think about stress symptoms, which we not often to think about. We already can think about the different illnesses a person have, right? But it's really think about that physical symptoms, behavioral symptoms, emotional symptoms that stress really bring us. And think about that, how we can foster that self-confidence to manage the stress using that techniques, and just having foster that attitude of gratitude, foster that attitude that you can handle this because you handled it so many years, right? You already did that. And think about how can you utilize that mindfulness, small mindfulness practices that help you to reduce your stress level that I shared with you today. And think about how can you create a positive state of mind, being engage in different activities, creating love and joy and a lot of different things, right, in your life. It's everything up to you. And when you really stress out, one of the really quick things, just use that breathing exercise, and it's always help you reduce your stress level. Maybe more than 1 minute, right? Maybe it's 5 minutes, but it will be really benefited at the end. So this type of information I usually share with when I work with farmers and delivering stress management workshop. And it's really great to do it when we have face-to-face activities, face-to-face sessions. And I do a lot of extension related products, and most of them short extension articles you can find in Penn State Extension website. That relates, some of them relates to stress as well. And here there's some resources that help me to put together this part of my presentation. And thank you so much for being here with us. And if you have any questions, Josie and I will be happy to answer. And I stop sharing my slides right now.
Hi, we did have a couple questions that came across. And I want to remind everybody to please follow the link in your chat box to do the survey. But a question that came up near the beginning of your presentation was, does ABC trained optimism blind us to the dangers, yet realistic situations arising around us? Perhaps you'd like to speak to that, Susanna?
I think the main idea of that ABC model is more about that understanding that activating event, okay, and not take it further to stress yourself more. It's more kind of using in blinding, mixing this information. My major point of these mindfulness practices, just think from perspective, think about through that situation, give yourself time a little bit, not just reduce the stress level, for example, using that breathing exercise, but give yourself time. Just think about how often did you have a situation that you so stressed, and a couple of days later you look at that situation differently, and you're sure you probably wouldn't so stress, right? So that show you, according to that ABC model, basically, that giving yourself a little bit time to analyze and form the way of your thinking in your assessing that event. So give your different reaction of the stress and you experiencing lower stress level, rather than you let yourself basically face that stress immediately and react, have a body reaction to the stress, like a kind of natural way. That's what we're thinking about being a human, having able to control ourselves. And definitely it's not happen over time. It's required training, especially when I talk about monitoring your stress level, right? It's all about the importance of this event. Many times we, in a few days or 1 month later, we think, why we were so stressed out? I have so high blood pressure, right? Because I was stressed out. It really wasn't so a big deal, right? So I'm talking about that type of situation that during day that we all experiencing that affect your stress level, that bring that unbalanced situation between your family work and family life. So I'm talking about that kind of things. In this ABC model, I applied in my speech today, specifically from perspective, evaluating your thoughts, evaluating the way you're thinking about that particular event and decreasing your stress level. Thank you.
Are there any other questions people would pose to our speakers? Okay. Then our final slide, Tess will put up regarding information for you all is we really want to thank you for being with us today. The session is the recording of this session along with the slides will be archived at the National AgrAbility website, which is on the screen. You can use the same Zoom link that you used today for all of our upcoming Tuesday sessions. Next week's session is asking the right questions and finding the right resources for rural caregivers with Ohio AgrAbility starting at 1 o'clock Eastern time. If you have any questions, you can contact Tess at tmckill@goodwillfingerslake.org. Does anybody have any other questions or